Welcome back to another episode of your English Plus. This is Sir G. In English, we have 12 different tenses. And as you look at this chart, it may initially seem a little bit overwhelming because how are you supposed to read it? And how are you supposed to make sense of it? Well, we can be more specific in categorizing this information. So instead of saying that we have 12 tenses, we can use the word tense more specifically to say that we actually have 3 tenses and 4 aspects. When we combine them, then we get this 12 different tenses. I suppose you can say, you can call them as well, but 12 different ways to use an action or a verb. So we'll start with the tenses then. We have 3 tenses. We have the past, what happened before. We have the present, what is happening now or in the now moment, whatever that means. And we have the future, which is what happens later. You can read this vertically then, so all these actions here happen now. I walk, I'm walking, I walked, I have been walking, and you can see that with the last two, they're not happening exactly right now. By the now moment, we mean something fairly loose and fairly expansive. I've given you a regular verb here, and I walk, and all the orange ones are related to this verb. But I also indicated that these are irregular verbs as well. Those change in different ways. So, I sang, for instance, is the past tense of I sing. And I haven't conjugated the yellow verb, the irregular verb here fully, but I think you can kind of go through it and use the same pattern as I walk and then see how it might be similar or different. So, the continuous would be I was singing, I am singing, and so on. Okay, so that is tense, but we can also talk about aspect. We have 4 different aspects as mentioned, and the word aspect often gives people a bit of trouble because what does it really mean? Well, I have defined aspect here for you as how an action relates to time or extends over time. Let's see if we can quickly make sense of the 4 different aspects. The simple aspect refers to an action that simply happened. We can draw an arrow here to indicate that it's just happened at a point in time. We're not being too specific necessarily about when it happened. In fact, what's kind of weird about the present simple here, you can also say simple present by the way, but we tend to read them from the top down. So the first tense first and then aspect. But if you're looking about the present simple here, I walk, you would say that if you're just talking about what you're doing right now, you would actually say I am walking. That's what's happening right now. So you don't say I walk. So what's kind of weird about the simple aspect is that it often has a bit of timeless quality to it. It's something that could happen over time or that you could use to talk about repeated actions or habitual actions. So you could say, I walk every day to school, and that's an action that you repeat all the time. So the simple aspect isn't entirely simple. It refers to an action that simply happened, but not in terms of its duration. I mean, there's quite a bit of flexibility, and we're not about being entirely specific in terms of what's going on here. Okay. Then the continuous. Continuous is an action that takes place over a period of time, so it's continuing or progressing action. It's really categorized by the present participle, which ends in ing, and then we have some helping verbs with it. The present participle does have the sense of continuation, walking. It doesn't say it happened in this moment, it's a process. So the continuous or progressive tense or aspect then indicates a sense of something happening over a period of time. Notice that the past tense here, the past continuous, in some language this is referred to as the imperfect. If you learn French, for instance, the past version would be called the imperfect. That's the similarity you can look for. The perfect is something that happened in the past and was completed. It's something that was completed and sort of has an endpoint. I shouldn't say in the past because it can also happening now or in the future. So it's completed action that happens in different tenses. You can say I had walked, I have walked, or I will have walked. And then the perfect continuous, the last one, is sort of combination of the previous two. The way you can think of this is a kind of continuing action that also has an endpoint. So I had been walking. Walking is the continuing action, but there was an endpoint and something else probably happened after that. I had been walking when, I tripped or something happened. So the perfect continuous then is a kind of hybrid of the previous two. So that's it for the tense and aspect. If you combine the two, as we've seen, you can create all these 12 aspects or different tenses, I should say, in English. So that's it for this episode. I hope that you guys are enlightened. This has been Sir G, and I'll see you next time.